If you go outside on any random day and look up at the sky above you, chances are you will see at least one white trail left behind from passing planes. This is such a common everyday occurrence that most of us never even notice them, much less stop to think about it. Whereas many just simply see dispersing vapor, many others see a secret conspiracy happening right out in the open, hidden in plain sight. So what is the truth behind the controversy of chemtrails, and what exactly is cloud seeding? First off, we need to understand what a contrail is before we can look at the accusations behind chemtrails. A contrail, or condensation trail, is water vapors ejected from a plane's engine during flight that then mixes with soot particles and cold air, resulting in ice crystals that eventually disperse in the atmosphere at the high altitude the aircraft travels through. While this may sound harmless, it actually is a huge environmental issue, directly creating a negative impact on the planet. These artificial clouds contribute to a greenhouse effect by trapping heat in a sort of thermal blanket. Some studies suggest that a single day's worth of contrails across the globe produces a bigger impact than decades' worth of carbon emissions. During COVID and the days following 9/11, when flights were grounded, temperatures actually dropped. The bright side to this is that once a contrail has faded away, so has any harmful impact, and contrails are relatively short-lived in general, unlike CO2, which lingers permanently. The important thing to note here is the acknowledged fact that contrails don't seem to tend to last very long at all. While there are some exceptions, of course, most will disappear after just a few minutes or even just a few seconds. Now, let's dive into the conspiracy and controversy surrounding chemtrails, or chemical trails. A chemtrail is allegedly an intentional chemical sprayed over skies that lingers for hours or even days, disguised as a normal contrail. What the chemicals are, or what the purpose for chemtrails is, has many different theories ranging from population control to mental influence over civilians. It also closely is linked to cloud seeding or weather control, and in case you've been living under a rock, that is one conspiracy theory the world governments have openly admitted to, and it's not even remotely a secret anymore. But what about chemtrails? Is there any real truth or science backing it? And if it is real, what purpose could it possibly serve? If you go asking around online, you'll find a lot of older people that will swear that when they were growing up, they never saw vapor trails that lingered in the sky for more than seconds or minutes. Some of these testimonies are from people who lived near airports and passed time as kids counting the handful of minutes it took for the trails to disappear entirely. Compare that to the vapor trails of today that often seem to linger for hours or even days without fading, and it's easy to understand why these people would naturally be alarmed by this. Of course, some of these accounts online are false, made-up tall tales, or simply a person misremembering. But could all of these thousands of people globally who swear by this really all either be lying or misunderstanding their own memories? But when and how did these rumors even start? It began in 1996 when the United States Air Force published an article about weather modification, which snowballed through the public and created fears and outrage ever since. The report stated a proposed outline plan for military dominance using weather manipulation by the year 2025. The EPA and other government agencies later stated that the report was outlining a fictional scenario and did not reflect the military's real plans. It was clarified that they had no intention of any weather modification programs, which this part in the very least turned out to be a lie, because only a handful of years later, geoengineering, also known as cloud seeding, is a common occurrence seen the world over. This was so casually and quietly put into practice that although technically publicly confirmed and no longer a secret, most people still have absolutely no clue that this is even a real thing because it sounds like something out of a sci-fi film. This is where the lines between chemtrails and weather manipulation blur, and people can easily get the two confused. In 2013, it was made public that the CIA, NOAA, and NASA would begin funding for research into further and more advanced technologies for geoengineering or weather alteration methods. To many, this notion was unfathomable to the point of total disbelief and dismissal, although, as mentioned, this was made public. At the very idea of geoengineering, even mainstream media cast it off as anti-government paranoia and a conspiracy theory. An article in International Business Times stated in part, "The idea of any agency looking into weather control and manipulation will be met with scrutiny, but no amount of disbelief or willful ignorance meant anything in reality because the funding of these programs went on regardless of if the public wanted to believe it was possible or not." There also is years-long accusations that Walt Disney Studios paid an artist $60 million to digitally add contrails to their catalog of older films to make these unnatural formations seem normal in nature. There are multiple states in the USA that have passed laws specifically banning the intentional release of airborne chemicals, geoengineering, and weather modification particles, which begs the question of how you can have a law against something that doesn't exist. What do these lawmakers know behind the scenes that the population is still clueless to? In 2025, the United States Secretary of Health and Human Services openly started supporting an investigation into chemtrails. In 2001 Space Preservation Act, a U.S. representative attempted to have chemtrails, geoengineering, and other environmental weapons banned, but the bill was not approved. You also have whistleblowers coming forward with leaked information both publicly and anonymously. Even countless politicians and celebrities have pointed fingers and thrown accusations. Many scientists, doctors, pilots, meteorologists, and more also are very vocal about their belief in the evidence of chemtrails. Sure, none of that makes it true necessarily, but where there's smoke, there's fire. With that said, it goes without saying that most professionals firmly dismiss the idea of chemtrails, and fair and reasonable debunks have been made against the theory. Even the infamous Edward Snowden said chemtrails aren't real. Usually the reason people dismiss these type of conspiracy theories without looking into it further are because of a belief that the government or scientists would simply never do it for moral and ethical reasons, not to mention no clear motive or benefit. So let's tackle the question of if they really would do something like this in the first place. To be clear, this next example is 100% true and confirmed real from declassified released documents and is publicly available. It is not a conspiracy theory, it's all real and you can search it up yourself. In the 1950s and 60s, the CIA conducted illegal drug experiments on unaware human subjects, including young children, in a study called MK Ultra. Using methods such as, but not limited to, LSD, sensory deprivation, and both physical and mental abuse on non-consenting subjects that went as far as electrocution and sexual torture. The purpose of the experiments was mind control and behavioral influence. During the course of the study, over 80 facilities and unlisted black sites were used, many of which were a fake front to hide the CIA's criminal involvement. In 1973, the CIA director at the time attempted to have the 20,000-plus files on the project destroyed, but it was finally exposed and declassified in 2001. Other offshoots of this study included Project Chatter, an experiment to develop a truth serum that would produce uninhibited truthfulness during interrogations. Many of these techniques used during these experiments were direct continuations of Nazi scientists at concentration camps. In 1953, LSD was forced upon, and I quote, people who could not fight back, meaning mental patients, prisoners, foreign soldiers, and expendable, low-ranking members of society. From the late 50s to mid-60s, the CIA funded experiments by a Scottish doctor in Canada, whose intent was to develop methods to selectively remove or replace certain memories to reprogram a person's brain with the goal of learning how to control and destroy a human mind. Its methods included placing subjects in environments where they had a noise or phrase repeated to them on an endless loop, resulting in the subjects becoming so confused and mentally unstable that they forgot how to speak and suffered from various mental and physical issues. For most of these subjects, they would carry the scars of these experiments both literally and metaphorically for the rest of their lives, and unfortunately, they got little to no justice for the crimes committed against them. In some cases, their accusations were not even believed and were dismissed and laughed at for sounding too outlandish and impossible. These experiments also, of course, resulted in senseless deaths, including military scientist Frank Olson, who resigned from his career as a bioweapon chemist due to extreme moral objections. He was given LSD without his knowledge or consent and died as a result. This is just one single example of what they are capable of and willing to do to human beings, no matter the cost. If you look for it, there are countless other examples as bad or worse than this one that are confirmed and undeniable as real, not a conspiracy theory. There isn't a question of if they would do these things because they already have done them. If the CIA director had been successful in destroying the documents, these truths would still be buried in just another conspiracy theory. How many other vile things similar to MKUltra have happened that we'll never know about because someone was able to keep it covered up? How many things like it are still happening right under our noses to this very day we don't even know about? Remember, until recently, cloud seeding and geoengineering was just another crazy conspiracy theory too. So yes, they really would do this to us without a second thought. The next thing to look at with chemtrails is the evidence for and against its existence. One of the biggest cases for chemtrails is that huge amounts of chemicals that by all accounts should not be found in the air and atmosphere are being found and noted in various professional studies on a global level. There are nanoparticles, aluminum, barium, polymer fibers, and other substances being found in testing. The evidence, though, is highly and strongly debated as being caused by various other things.
A huge amount of aluminum being found because these sprays have aluminum, strontium, barium, manganese, and there's a lot of argument that aluminum is very common to be found, but aluminum is only common in a bonded form. It's not common in a free form, and we're finding high rates of free aluminum in the soil, which is not natural.
An argument against chemtrails is that it seemingly is an overly complicated process to allegedly poison a population by spraying from a plane when the food or water supply would be easier and more accessible. While this is a reasonable question worth considering, the reason is that it is perhaps the one and only way to reach and cover large areas quickly and make it entirely unavoidable. A person that theoretically could live off the grid and exclusively grow their own food and collect water from natural sources only. But a person can never control what is happening in the skies above them. Even someone completely away from society and isolated is affected by the very air we breathe.
I can control how I grow my food and if I want to spray pesticides or not, but I cannot control the experiments over my head.
Believers also point to strange cloud patterns and unnatural shapes such as complicated grids as evidence of intentional chemtrails creating a blanket effect over a large area in the sky, since these grids are too precise to be purely coincidental. Believers in chemtrails allege that the type of chemicals used and their purposes vary greatly. One theory is that it is biological testing on areas to observe how quickly a virus spreads through a community, or even that the spray is a type of non-consensual inoculation. Suggestions have been made that aerosols are being released to manage solar radiation levels, which would be greatly controversial due to unknown risks to the environment, since some known effects are the whitening or hazy appearances in skies, ozone depletion, acid rain, and negative effects to solar power energy harvesting, as well as agricultural and ecological imbalances. As for chemtrails having a militaristic gain, it's easy to see why. Just like the Air Force's original report implied, to control the weather is to control the world. If cloud seeding and geoengineering is happening on a large scale as we speak, really, why is it hard to believe chemtrails could have some truth to them, at least to some extent, even if it's not in the ways we may suspect? A drought, flood, or hurricane, for example, does more than just take lives and damage a community. It costs a nation millions, if not billions, and can create an unstable, precarious landscape in an entire country that's effects and fallout can last years. Acid rain or some chemical poison, even if slow-acting and non-lethal, could cripple an enemy's infrastructure slowly but surely by impacting their food, water, and air. Of course, any given government in the world would be highly interested in these methods and want to have them at their disposal if need be. Even if it's not been used yet, it seems pretty obvious that research is being done nonetheless. After all, look how many countries have nuclear power at their fingertips ready to go at a moment's notice. The benefit of cloud seeding and chemical sprays would be the fact that it can be controlled and maintained to only affect certain specific areas and wouldn't create lethal fallout that can easily reach beyond the intended target. These tests and research is being done, and we know it because the funding was made public knowledge years ago. In what world would the CIA and other government agencies only be interested in using this research for good and wholesome reasons? They obviously are giving just as much or more attention to how it could be used against enemies. That's the only scenario that would even make sense. So no matter if chemtrails are being used on civilians for nefarious reasons currently or not, that research and testing is happening regardless. The government already used weather modification against its enemies during the Vietnam War. Operation Popeye successfully increased rainfall by 50% and extended the monsoon season by 30 to 45 days, resulting in catastrophic landslides and other complications that aided in the war. This was declassified in 1974 but remains largely unheard of. One of the biggest theories, and perhaps the hardest to believe, is that this spray is for population control, not just by direct gradual poisoning, but also by releasing chemical compounds that cause infertility. It's become something of a joke online at this point, but it genuinely is scientifically credible that certain pesticides, yes, the exact ones sprayed on our foods, have been documented repeatedly as causing these effects on lab-tested animals such as frogs. This is another thing that people hear and immediately say is just a conspiracy theory. But check out this article from the National Institutes of Health.gov detailing the impact of pesticides in the food and water supply on these animals, which makes you really question what it could be doing to us humans too. In fact, the National Library of Medicine states that over 500,000 pounds of this specific pesticide is detected in rainfall in the United States alone each year. So it's not a question of if these chemicals even exist, they already do and are commonplace. The question is, why would the government intentionally expose its own civilians to it? Some suggest it's as simple as there being too many people to manage, too many people drawing checks from the government help each month, and a need to weed out the ones who are costing the government money instead of making the government money by being a productive and useful cog in the overall machine. Most scientists agree the world population is too high and causes a tremendous strain on the infrastructure and economy with simultaneous shortages and overconsumption. A smaller, more manageable population would increase productivity, overall wealth, and sustainability. While this all would be a positive, the ways in which they may decide to get to that end goal may have some nefarious connections. This isn't a new option either. Human population planning has a long history worldwide. Think how much money the governments would save if they were able to weed out even just a small chunk of older and/or disabled people that are currently benefiting from government money via their insurance or disability. Is it really hard to believe they would want to maneuver things to line their own pockets some more? A chemical that weakens the already weak, no matter how it is administered, would only serve to benefit all the right people. If they die, that's one less leash on their system in their eyes, and in the meantime, the healthcare industry is booming with trillions each year. Cancer treatments, medications, all of that makes an absolute fortune, and, surprise, the same people who sell you the medicine are the same ones who sell you your food and who have their dirty fingers in politics. It's an endless cycle where the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, all while the elites party with Epstein. Don't put anything past these people, and don't forget that they have financial interest in keeping you sick. So to sum a few things up, no, we can't definitively say chemtrails are a real phenomena or that we are being sprayed with chemicals for whatever reasons, but we can say that it shouldn't surprise you if it is happening, because we know from history that there really are evil scientists and corrupt governments that have already done similar things in the recent past, and the only reason we know about it is because someone slipped up and got caught and the documents were released. This has happened time and again, so it wouldn't be that shocking to find out that they are secretly doing something like this behind closed doors, but it has to be acknowledged that most credible professionals do not support this theory. What we can say is true without question is cloud seeding and geoengineering. As far-fetched as it sounds, yes, there really is weather manipulation happening all around us in over 50 countries as we speak. The official story is that it's only used to ease droughts and that the silver iodide use has no negative effects on the environment and humans. It's up to you to decide if there could possibly be sinister uses for it as well. After all, we've already seen it having been used to harm in Vietnam, where coincidentally the government also sprayed 20 million gallons of a toxic mixture out of planes, resulting in countless painful deaths of both humans and wildlife, and destroyed the local ecosystem for years to come. The ecological fallout and suffering was unimaginable and is still ongoing to this day. Cancer and other life-threatening conditions are still raging in Vietnam, and substantial birth defects continue, all as a direct result of Agent Orange. Once again, it isn't a question of if they would do it, because they already have. But what do you believe? Leave your opinion in the comments below, and we'll see you next time at the Crow's Nest.